Do you think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
What have you done to his eyes?
Good evening, and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, I'm going to be going over Ira Levin's novel, Rosemary's Baby, as well as its film adaptation from 1968. To summarize the story of Rosemary's Baby, essentially the lead character, Rosemary, is a newlywed woman that moves into this New York City apartment with her husband, Guy, who is a struggling actor. This apartment building is infamous but also enticing because of its location, and they decide to move in and get settled in. Once they're settled in, they meet their kooky old neighbors, Minnie and Roman Castevet, and they are soon after blessed with a seemingly normal pregnancy. As a disclaimer, there are going to be heavy spoilers throughout this video since it has been out for a very long time, since the 60s. So I hope if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. I highly recommend reading the novel. I read it through my library on an ebook and it was just fantastic. So with that said, that is your spoiler warning, and let's sink our teeth in. Something interesting about this adaptation is that there is a lot of exact dialogue and direction that is taken word for word from the book. I feel like a lot of movies that are based off of a novel, the adaptation takes a lot of artistic liberties, so I thought it was kind of surprising that this was so faithful to the source content. Like, just think about literally any Stephen King adaptation. There are so many liberties taken, so I thought that was really interesting. I was in high school when I first watched this movie, and I gotta be honest, I thought it was super slow and also kind of goofy. Just last year, I found out that the movie was based on a novel. I had no idea that it was based on a book, and so I decided to read it, and I gotta say up front, I absolutely loved the book. I thought it was amazing. I appreciated the fact that it was a quick read. It was only 256 pages. It has really great pacing, and I found the tone for this novel to be very approachable and straightforward. Like, you know how some classic literature, it's very flowery language, and sometimes you're like, I don't even know what that word means. And it was nice to have it just sort of very plainly stated, but it had so much personality behind it that it felt very relatable to me. Lastly, I feel like the characters in the book are just so well developed and dimensional that it made it such an enjoyable read for me. Like, you'd kind of be surprised with the subject matter, but this book is funny as hell. Like, I love the little side thoughts and mannerisms of a lot of the characters, and it also is built upon these characters have flaws too, and it was just really interesting to read about these people, and it felt like I could just reach out and touch them. So as you could probably suspect, I loved this book, so I decided to check out some of Ira Levin's other works, and he also wrote The Stepford Wives. He does such a great job with feminist fiction, and I found both of his works to be super enjoyable. So after I read both of those books, I decided to revisit the film, and I appreciated more of it this time. And if you do love this film, that's awesome. Take my review with a grain of salt, just because I'm just some bonehead on the internet that likes spooky stuff, and we definitely are allowed to have differing opinions. And I'll admit, I'm biased. I totally am gonna judge the movie a lot more harshly because I read the book shortly before watching the movie again. And I feel like that's always going to be a thing whenever you watch an adaptation after reading the book. There's always going to be these kind of rose-colored glasses, because a book is always going to be able to develop things and flesh out ideas a lot more deeply because it has the room and sort of the space to kind of let it breathe. And so I know that I'm biased, and I just wanted to pop that in there. So as for most of the actors, I think they did an awesome job. Mia Farrow as the titular protagonist, she nailed that perfect balance between sort of naivete and submissive behavior. and her rebellious side and kind of like speaking up for her own rights. Her character arc is incredibly interesting to me, and there were a lot of moments where I kind of felt these like sympathy pains, and I think that her portrayal was really effective. So next door to Rosemary and Guy, we have Minnie and Roman Castevet. Roman is actually the leader of this satanic cult, and he is played by Sidney Blackmer. I think Blackmer really nailed that kind of like charming but also disarming personality of Roman. He's just incredibly likable. Roman's wife, Minnie Castevet, is played by Ruth Gordon, and I gotta say it, she stole the show, man. She was just so good. She's like a Satanist version of Matilda's mom. She just has that like kind of silly, goofy, motherly vibe to her, but also just like very obnoxious. One thing that I thought was interesting, and I was kind of surprised when I watched the movie, is that in the novel, Ira Levin has Minnie have like a Midwestern, he always calls it a Midwestern bray, which is like so rude. But in the movie, her accent is changed to like New Yorker, New Yorkin. Oddly enough, even though that change was surprising to me, I felt like she made it work. Like, Ruth Gordon didn't just adapt the character, she just became the character. It felt like I was just watching a normal human being interacting with other people. Little things like her rubbing the gouge in the wood when Rosemary drops the knife into her floor, those didn't really feel like choices. It just felt like she was embodying that character. Both in the novel and the movie, you just feel like Roman and Minnie are just very like approachable, likable people, even if they do have their quirks. And it always makes me like ask myself, and I do it with a lot of horror movies, where it's like, would I make that same mistake? Would I invite Minnie and Roman into my life? And hell yeah, I would. They like remind me of those old couples that would sometimes come into the coffee shop that I worked at. They would be like at the counter telling these stories, and you never really knew when they were gonna end or if they were gonna end. And meanwhile, you have like all these orders backing up, but like I wouldn't dare cut them off because they just want to talk to somebody. Hi there, welcome into Salem's Latte. What can I get?
His name is Adrian.
Adrian.
Right. He shall redeem the despised and wreak vengeance in the name of the burned and the tortured. Hail Adrian! Hail Adrian! Hail Satan!
So we just went ahead and surprised you with a cappuccino. Have a good one. But yeah, I mean, I'd get down with Minnie and Roman. They probably started like a Scrabble night or something. But that is kind of like the first unsettling idea, is that when a monster doesn't look like a monster, how can you be sure? So one actor that I have not spoken about yet is John Cassavetes. He plays Rosemary's actor husband Guy, and I have to say, I feel like the casting here just falls short for me. Like, I know Dennis Quaid was not around in this time, but like I'm thinking just like a rugged, classically cute guy, you know? And I didn't quite get that from John Cassavetes. Like, he just kind of seems like a stockbroker guy, a little slime ball. And in the novel, there are several instances of Guy being witty and charming, and it's so bizarre because some of the lines are directly taken from the novel and put into the film, and I don't get that charm from Guy's character. And Guy was not a perfect person even before he makes this awful deal. Like, you definitely could see his kind of like self-serving behavior and his vanity, because he obsesses over a pimple, and he's very consumed with his acting career. But he also was just like funny. Like, he's so funny in the novel, and like kind of snarky, and he makes like weird faces when the guy is like showing them the apartment, and I don't know, I felt like I didn't receive any of that charm that was in the novel. Like, my dude just looks so bored and irritated throughout this entire film. One of the bigger divides between the novel and the film's version of Guy was when he gets the phone call that his acting competition, Donald Baumgart, suddenly woke up blind, and now he has the part that Donald Baumgart had, and it's supposed to be this huge acting break for him. In the book, you know that Guy is just kind of like anxiously pacing around and waiting, almost anticipating this phone call. In the movie, it just felt like the actor was asleep. Like he just was, oh no, that's awful. Okay, yeah, cool. And maybe it was a specific, like, intentional choice to maybe make it seem that Guy is just this really mediocre actor because he knew about this phone call. He was ready for, you know, to find out that the guy had been blinded. I don't know. It felt like a very nothing scene to me, whereas in the book, it felt like it had quite a bit of significance. Also, I feel like there was a lot more inner turmoil conveyed in the book about Guy making this huge decision to make Rosemary the mother of the Antichrist. Like, he's super restless and he stays up late smoking, and it also takes a few days for him to actually make this decision. And I'm just not sure why that was left out in the film. Like, I would hope if I had a long-term romantic partner that they would take a few days to decide something like this. Like, it just gives me the vibe that he was soulless and heartless from the beginning. And I felt like in the book, you could see that, you know, he's just so consumed by his need for success that he just kind of writes it off. And, oh gosh, we gotta talk about the love scene, man! And not that one, but the one with Guy and her in the very beginning before he even makes this deal. I don't even think that love scenes in movies are really that important to me. But this one made me so uncomfy because it's just, there's like no chemistry and it's completely silent aside from like the outside ambient noise, and it's just like, put a record on or something. Like, you're making, they don't even talk to each other. It's weird. I didn't like it. This film is also known for its really well done continuous takes. I think that really adds to the realism because it's in real time. You're not getting a bunch of like kind of jump cuts. When you do a continuous take, it kind of feels like you're just there, a part of this. Something else that I noticed that I felt added to a lot of the realism in the movie was the fact that characters' lines overlap with each other. I forget what video it was. I'll see if I can link it up here, but basically it was talking about that's how you kind of create natural conversations in film, because a lot of real conversations, people kind of interrupt and talk over each other or, you know, kind of back down and repeat each other, and it just, I felt like that added a lot of authenticity to the dialogue. In terms of plot, I think that's really where the story shines. It's such an interesting and heartbreaking story that I think was masterfully crafted by Ira Levin. Levin just knows how to instill this like hopelessness and dread in the reader, and it leaves you questioning everyone around you. It's really done wonders for my social relationships. Honestly, thinking about this, Rosemary gets like the worst end of the deal. At least with the first girl, she was getting rehabilitated and kept off drugs and sort of leading to a better life. And with the deal that Guy makes, it continues to allow the cult to be in power, and it helps Guy gain success, and Rosemary gets nothing.
You're getting 30 grand? I'm getting 1,000!
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
Hopping into the music, I unfortunately can't include much of it in this video just because don't want to get spanked by the copyright overlords, but I do feel like it fit really nicely when it was incorporated. There's this heavy utilization of brass instruments, and it creates this almost like dizzying effect. Like when you hear the horn doing that, like don't you imagine it being like, I don't know. There's something that I did want to talk about, and I feel like I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere, and I just kind of wanted to know your guys' thoughts too. It's super subtle, but it's a leaking faucet sound. So the first time I think that I heard it in the film was when Rosemary returns from visiting Hutch, and you see in the apartment there are roses everywhere that Guy bought for her to kind of apologize for the way that he had been acting. I think this is also the scene where he proposes that they start to make a baby together. And I don't think it's just some simple explanation like the faucet dripping after he fills the vases, because I think I'm pretty sure I hear it in other scenes later too. It has to be a sound effect that was added in, and I feel like, I don't know, to add that in, I feel like there must be some sort of significance to it. With the story's strong ties to Catholicism, I decided to see if there might be some sort of mention in the Bible regarding like a leaking faucet or some sort of dripping water. And lo and behold, I found something. In Proverbs 27:15, it says, "A quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Restraining her is like restraining the wind or grasping oil with the hand." So stick with me here. Hutch serves as the voice of Rosemary's concerns. She had been feeling kind of awful with the relationship that she has with Guy lately, and Hutch perfectly articulated her feelings. Additionally, he's also the one that basically gives her the information to start unraveling this plot against her. So every time that she interacts with Hutch, she is taking a step forward for herself, and she is reclaiming her space. Now, with the plot against Rosemary, it's ideal for her to be very naive and compliant, and with her standing up for herself, it's basically like trying to restrain wind. Now, I know that I am notorious for reading way too much into stuff, and it could possibly just be like, oh, I wanted some ambient noise, but I just thought it was something interesting, and the fact that there is something that is somewhat tied in Catholicism, and it kind of makes sense with this story that they would want, no matter what, for her to just be compliant and not have to be a quarrelsome wife. I just thought it was interesting, the timing right after she is with somebody that empowers her. Okay, and then the last thing regarding music, I do feel like it was really interesting in the film, the fact that its placement kind of influenced how I felt about it. So initially I had to kind of skip through the opening credits because they had this song that was sung by Rosemary's actor Mia Farrow, and it is literally 2 minutes and 44 seconds of hearing la 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 la, just over and over again. But when the exact same song is played at the end of the film, it felt perfect. With it being incorporated at the end, it makes so much more sense now because the baby has been born and this haunting lullaby has this melancholy touch to it, and it just perfectly capped the ending. Speaking of the ending, oh boy, I hate to say it, but like every time that those old people are chanting Hail Satan, it cracks me up so much.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
I feel like the ending of this story does bring about different interpretations. I know many people interpret Rosemary accepting the baby and choosing to be a mother to it is basically her giving up and succumbing to the cult. Personally, I interpret a less bleak outcome, and it's more so focusing on Rosemary's resilience. There are so many horrible and traumatic things that happen to Rosemary throughout this film, but she is basically reclaiming a life that was stolen from her, both metaphorically and literally. In the literal sense, the baby that she was going to have, this life that she gave birth to, is taken over by a dark entity. Metaphorically, she also has essentially lost the life that she was going to live. She had her longtime and biggest supporter, Hutch, murdered. All of her friends and even future ones could be falling prey to this cult, so she can never really gain that closeness to anybody else. And ultimately, the sacrifice of her freedom and autonomy. That's something that was so interesting to me, is that Rosemary was so concerned that the cult was going to sacrifice her baby, but she was the sacrifice. Despite the darkness present in the baby, as well as the darkness looming over Rosemary's life, it also contains the presence of goodness that Rosemary brought to this story. And I feel like there's a sense of resilience and recovery that might be possible with this ending. And that is about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely leave it a thumbs up so I know, and let me know in the comments below if you guys have any other theories that you have. There was definitely a lot more that I wanted to talk about, especially the color yellow being throughout this book and the movie, but I've been filming for an hour 17 minutes and I would like to eat soon. But yeah, I hope you guys found this to be fun to watch, and let me know if you guys do end up checking out the book, because I thought it was great. I think Ira Levin's an awesome writer. But yeah, with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye!